Have you ever felt like the harder you try to get someone's attention, the more distant they become? You text first, you check in, you try to fix things, you give understanding, patience, and endless chances. Yet somehow, the more effort you put in, the less effort they seem to give back. If you've experienced this with an avoidant person, you're not alone. Now, before we begin, let's clear something up. The title says, Avoidant will chase you madly after 7 days. But this isn't about manipulation. It's not about playing games. It's not about making someone suffer so they come running back. This is about understanding human psychology. Avoidant people often feel overwhelmed when they sense expectations, pressure, or emotional pursuit. The moment they feel someone is trying to pull them closer, their instinct is often to create distance, and this creates a painful cycle. The more anxious one person becomes, the more they pursue. The more they pursue, the more the avoidant withdraws. The more the avoidant withdraws, the more desperate the other person feels. Nobody wins. What changes everything is when one person decides to step out of the cycle. Imagine that for 7 days, you stop trying to convince someone of your value. You stop checking whether they replied. You stop wondering what they're thinking. You stop making them the center of your emotional world. Instead, you redirect that energy back toward yourself. Something remarkable begins to happen. For the first time, the avoidant experiences your absence, not because you're punishing them, not because you're angry, but because you're genuinely engaged in your own life. Most people underestimate the power of absence. When someone becomes accustomed to your constant availability, your presence starts to feel guaranteed. Human beings often appreciate things most when they realize they are not automatic. The avoidant who was used to your texts every morning suddenly notices the silence. The avoidant who assumed you would always reach out starts wondering why you haven't. The avoidant who never had to question your attention suddenly feels uncertainty, and uncertainty creates curiosity. Curiosity creates attention. Attention often creates pursuit. But here's the part most people misunderstand. The magic isn't in the 7 days. The magic is in who you become during those 7 days. Because if you're spending those 7 days staring at your phone, counting hours, and hoping they'll chase you, you've missed the point entirely. The goal isn't to make them think about you. The goal is to give yourself permission to think about yourself again. Start investing in your friendships. Start pursuing your goals. Start taking care of your health. Start developing your confidence. Start becoming someone whose happiness is not dependent on another person's behavior. This changes your energy, and people notice energy. When someone senses that your life is full, meaningful, and moving forward, they often become more interested. Why? Because confidence is attractive. Purpose is attractive. Independence is attractive. Neediness says, please choose me. Confidence says, I am already choosing myself. And that difference is powerful. Many avoidants don't chase because they suddenly become different people. They chase because the dynamic has changed. The pressure disappeared. The expectations disappeared. The emotional pursuit disappeared. For the first time, they have room to move toward you voluntarily. Healthy attraction requires freedom. Nobody likes feeling cornered. Nobody likes feeling forced. Even people who deeply care about someone need space to choose. And when you stop trying to force connection, you create the possibility for authentic connection. Now, let's be honest. Will every avoidant come back after 7 days? No. And that's actually important to understand. Because your value should never depend on whether someone returns. The real victory isn't getting them to chase. The real victory is discovering that your happiness survives even when they don't. That's the moment you become powerful. That's the moment you stop negotiating your worth. That's the moment you stop begging for consistency and start expecting it. Ironically, that's often when people become most attractive. Not because they're trying to attract someone, but because they're no longer trying to convince anyone of their value. The healthiest relationships happen when two people choose each other freely. Not because one person chased harder, not because one person sacrificed more, but because both people genuinely want to be there. So if you're dealing with an avoidant right now, remember this. Stop focusing on how to make them chase. Start focusing on becoming the person who doesn't need to chase. Because when you build a life that excites you, fulfills you, and respects you, one of two things happens. Either they notice your absence and move toward you, or they don't. But in both scenarios, you win, because you've reclaimed the one thing that should never be placed in someone else's hands, your sense of self-worth. People with avoidant attachment often pull away, not because they don't care, but because closeness can trigger a deep sense of discomfort that they may not fully understand themselves. To someone on the receiving end, their behavior can seem confusing and even contradictory. One moment they appear interested, affectionate, and emotionally connected, and the next they seem distant, distracted, or unavailable. This sudden shift is often rooted in the way they learn to handle emotions and relationships. Long before they entered adulthood, many avoidant individuals grew up in environments where emotional needs were minimized, dismissed, or met inconsistently. Over time, they learned that relying on others could lead to disappointment, pressure, or vulnerability. As a result, they developed a strong belief that independence equals safety. They became skilled at taking care of themselves and avoiding situations that might make them feel emotionally dependent on someone else. When a relationship starts becoming more serious, an avoidant person may begin experiencing internal conflict. On one hand, they desire connection, companionship, and love, just like anyone else. On the other hand, increased intimacy can feel threatening because it requires emotional openness. The closer someone gets to them, the more they may fear losing their freedom, being controlled, or becoming responsible for another person's emotional well-being. These fears are often subconscious, yet they can strongly influence behavior. This is why avoidants frequently create distance when emotions become intense. They may take longer to respond to messages, become focused on work or hobbies, cancel plans, or seem less enthusiastic than before. These actions are not always deliberate attempts to hurt someone. Often, they are strategies designed to reduce the emotional pressure they are feeling internally. Pulling away helps them regain a sense of control when vulnerability begins to feel overwhelming. Another important aspect of avoidant psychology is that they tend to value autonomy very highly. When they sense expectations, demands, or constant pursuit from a partner, they may interpret it as a threat to their independence. Even healthy expressions of affection can sometimes feel overwhelming if they are already struggling with emotional closeness. The more pressure they perceive, the stronger their instinct may be to create space. Understanding this dynamic does not mean excusing unhealthy behavior or accepting emotional inconsistency. It simply provides insight into why avoidants often act the way they do. Their withdrawal is usually less about a lack of feelings and more about their complicated relationship with vulnerability. The challenge for avoidance is learning that intimacy and independence can coexist. The challenge for those who love them is recognizing that chasing harder rarely creates closeness. True connection grows when both people feel safe, respected, and free to choose each other without fear. One of the biggest mistakes people make when dealing with an avoidant person is believing that more effort will automatically create more connection. When an avoidant starts becoming distant, the natural reaction for many people is to move closer. They send more texts, ask more questions, seek more reassurance, and try harder to prove their love and commitment. While these actions often come from a genuine desire to save the relationship, they can have the opposite effect on someone with avoidant tendencies. The reason is simple. Avoidants often experience emotional pressure differently than other people. What one person sees as affection, concern, or persistence, an avoidant may interpret as expectations, demands, or a threat to their personal freedom. As the pursuit increases, so does their discomfort. Instead of feeling drawn closer by the attention, they may feel overwhelmed by it. This creates a frustrating cycle. The more distant the avoidant becomes, the more anxious the other person feels. The more anxious they feel, the more they reach out. The more they reach out, the more the avoidant feels pressured. As a result, the avoidant creates even more distance. Both people are reacting to fear, but neither realizes they are unintentionally reinforcing the problem. Many people assume that if they can just explain themselves better, love harder, or show enough patience, the avoidant will finally understand how much they care. Unfortunately, repeated attempts to secure connection can sometimes communicate something entirely different. They can signal desperation, dependency, or a lack of confidence. Even if those perceptions are inaccurate, they can change the dynamic of the relationship. Chasing also shifts the balance of emotional investment. When one person is doing all the pursuing, they often become focused on gaining attention, rather than evaluating whether the relationship is meeting their own needs. Their self-worth gradually becomes tied to the avoidance responses. Every text, call, or interaction starts feeling like a measure of their value. This emotional dependence creates even more pressure within the relationship. Ironically, the strongest position is often the one people resist the most. Instead of chasing, they need to create space. Not as a tactic, not as a game, and not as a punishment, but as an act of self-respect. Space allows emotions to settle. It gives the avoidant room to process their feelings without pressure. It also gives the other person an opportunity to reconnect with their own life, goals, and confidence. Healthy attraction grows in an environment where both people feel free to choose each other. When someone is constantly being pursued, they never have to make that choice for themselves. Chasing removes the opportunity for genuine pursuit because it fills every moment with pressure and expectation. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop running after someone and allow them to decide whether they want to move toward you on their own. That decision reveals far more about the relationship than any amount of chasing ever could. The idea of a 7-day shift is not about following a magic formula or using a countdown to make someone miss you. It is about creating a meaningful change in where your attention, energy, and emotional investment are directed. When you've been focused on an avoidant person for a long time, it is easy to fall into a pattern where much of your day revolves around their actions. You check your phone to see if they replied, analyze their messages, wonder what they are thinking, and constantly look for signs that they care. Without realizing it, your emotional state begins to depend on their level of engagement. The 7-day shift begins when you consciously stop pursuing and redirect that energy back toward yourself. Instead of asking, "Why haven't they called?" you start asking, "What can I do today that improves my own life?" Instead of waiting for validation, you begin creating fulfillment from your own actions, relationships, and goals. This simple shift may sound small, but its impact can be profound. During the first few days, many people experience discomfort. They feel the urge to reach out, check social media, or seek reassurance. This is completely normal, because habits do not disappear overnight. When someone has occupied a significant amount of your mental space, pulling your attention away from them can feel unfamiliar. However, as the days progress, something important starts to happen. The emotional intensity begins to settle. The constant cycle of anticipation and disappointment loses some of its power. As you spend more time focusing on yourself, you often reconnect with parts of your life that have been neglected. You invest in friendships, hobbies, personal growth, work, health, or new experiences. You begin remembering that your identity is much larger than one relationship. This renewed focus creates a stronger sense of confidence and emotional stability. Instead of feeling like your happiness depends on another person's choices, you begin realizing that you have more control over your well-being than you thought. At the same time, the avoidant person experiences a change in the dynamic. If they have become accustomed to your constant attention, they may start noticing its absence. The predictable pattern they relied on is no longer there. This can create curiosity and reflection. For the first time, they may have the opportunity to think about the relationship without the pressure of being pursued. In some cases, this leads them to reach out, reconnect, or show renewed interest. However, the true power of the 7-day shift is not whether the avoidant comes back. The real transformation happens within you. You stop measuring your worth by someone else's behavior. You stop chasing certainty from a person who may not be able to provide it. You begin building a life that feels meaningful, regardless of what another person chooses to do. That is why the 7-day shift is so powerful. It changes the focus from trying to control someone else's actions to strengthening your own foundation. Whether the avoidant notices or not, you emerge with greater clarity, confidence, and self-respect. And those qualities are far more valuable than any temporary attention you could gain through pursuit. One of the most misunderstood concepts in relationships is emotional space. Many people hear the word distance and immediately assume it means disconnection, rejection, or the end of a relationship. In reality, healthy emotional space can often create the conditions necessary for deeper understanding and renewed appreciation. This is especially true when dealing with someone who has avoidant tendencies. When emotions become intense, avoidant individuals often feel overwhelmed. The more they sense pressure, expectations, or constant pursuit, the more likely they are to retreat inward. This does not necessarily mean they have stopped caring. Often, it means they are trying to regulate feelings that have become uncomfortable for them. Unfortunately, when someone notices this withdrawal, their instinct is usually to move closer, seek answers, and increase communication. While understandable, this response can unintentionally add even more pressure to an already overwhelmed situation. Creating emotional space interrupts this cycle. Instead of trying to force clarity, reassurance, or commitment, you allow room for both people to breathe. This space is not about punishment, manipulation, or playing hard to get. It is about stepping back from a dynamic that may have become emotionally crowded and giving the space and air. When someone is constantly available, their presence can become predictable. Human beings often adapt quickly to what they expect to receive. A person who knows you will always text first, always check in, and always initiate contact may stop actively thinking about your role in their life because your attention feels guaranteed. When that pattern changes, something interesting can happen. The absence of constant pursuit creates a gap where curiosity can emerge. Curiosity is a powerful emotional force. When the usual flow of attention disappears, people often begin asking questions they were not asking before. They may wonder what you are doing, how you are feeling, or why the dynamic has changed. They may reflect on conversations, memories, and moments they previously took for granted. This reflection is difficult to achieve when someone is constantly filling every silence with messages, explanations, or attempts to reconnect. Distance can also provide perspective. When people are caught in emotional tension, they often react rather than reflect. They focus on immediate feelings of stress, pressure, or frustration. Space gives those emotions time to settle. Once the emotional noise decreases, it becomes easier to evaluate what the relationship actually means. An avoidant person who felt overwhelmed may begin recognizing that the relationship offered comfort, connection, and value that they overlooked while they were focused on protecting their independence. At the same time, emotional space benefits you as well. It allows you to step out of a reactive mindset and regain balance. Instead of constantly monitoring another person's behavior, you begin reconnecting with your own priorities, goals, and emotional needs. This clarity helps you see the relationship more objectively, rather than through the lens of anxiety or fear. The key is understanding that emotional space is not about making someone miss you. It is about creating an environment where genuine thoughts and feelings can surface without pressure. Sometimes that reflection leads a person back toward the relationship. Sometimes it reveals that they are not ready or willing to invest in the connection. Either outcome provides valuable truth. By allowing distance to create curiosity and reflection, you give both people the opportunity to make choices based on genuine desire rather than emotional pressure. Many people believe that attracting someone's attention requires being constantly available, They think that replying immediately, always saying yes, dropping everything to accommodate someone else's schedule, and making themselves endlessly accessible will strengthen the connection. While these actions may seem loving on the surface, they often produce the opposite result. Attraction is rarely built through over-availability. It is built through value, purpose, confidence, and a strong sense of self. When someone becomes the center of your world, it is easy to start organizing your life around them. You wait for their messages, adjust your plans to fit theirs, and make their needs a priority while neglecting your own. Over time, your attention becomes so focused on keeping the relationship alive that you stop investing in the things that made you interesting and attractive in the first place. Ironically, the more available you become, the less mystery, excitement, and individuality you project. Becoming more valuable does not mean playing games or pretending to be busy. It means genuinely creating a life that is rich, meaningful, and fulfilling regardless of your relationship status. It means developing yourself as a person rather than making another person the source of all your happiness. People are naturally drawn to those who have purpose, direction, and confidence because those qualities signal emotional strength and stability. Think about the people who leave the strongest impression on others. They are rarely the ones constantly seeking approval. They are often individuals who have passions, goals, friendships, and interests that give their lives depth. They enjoy relationships, but they do not depend on them to feel complete. Their sense of worth comes from within rather than from external validation. This shift is particularly important when dealing with avoidant individuals. Avoidants are often highly sensitive to pressure and expectations. When they sense that someone is relying on them for emotional fulfillment, they may feel overwhelmed and pull away. However, when they see someone who is emotionally grounded, independent, and engaged in their own life, the dynamic changes. Instead of feeling responsible for that person's happiness, they see someone who chooses connection rather than needs it. Being valuable means investing in your growth. It means learning new skills, pursuing meaningful goals, maintaining strong friendships, and taking care of your physical and emotional well-being. It means having experiences that enrich your life and broaden your perspective. These things not only improve your confidence, but also make you more interesting and engaging to be around. Another powerful aspect of value is self-respect. People notice how you treat yourself. When you establish healthy boundaries, honor your time, and refuse to tolerate inconsistent behavior, you communicate that your presence has worth. You are no longer trying to convince someone to appreciate you because you already appreciate yourself. This creates a completely different energy within the relationship. Many people fear that if they stop being constantly available, they will be forgotten. In reality, healthy attraction often grows when both people have room to miss each other, appreciate each other, and choose each other freely. Constant availability can sometimes remove the opportunity for anticipation and curiosity. A person who is always present can unintentionally become predictable, while a person who is actively living a meaningful life naturally commands attention. The goal is not to become unavailable. The goal is to become fulfilled. There is a significant difference. Unavailability can be a tactic. Fulfillment is a lifestyle. One is designed to manipulate perception. The other is designed to improve your life. When you focus on becoming more valuable rather than more available, you stop chasing attention and start attracting it naturally. And whether an avoidant notices or not, you gain something far more important, a stronger, more confident version of yourself. Real attraction is often misunderstood. Many people believe attraction is about convincing someone to like them, proving their worth, or doing enough to earn another person's affection. They think that if they say the right things, give enough attention, or make enough sacrifices, they can create a stronger connection. While effort certainly matters in relationships, genuine attraction does not grow from pressure. It grows from choice. Healthy attraction occurs when two people freely decide they want to invest in each other. There is no forcing, persuading, or chasing required. Instead, both individuals are naturally drawn toward one another because they enjoy the connection, respect each other, and feel emotionally safe together. This type of attraction feels different because it is not driven by fear of loss or anxiety about being abandoned. It is driven by genuine desire. Pressure, on the other hand, often creates resistance. When someone feels pushed into making decisions before they are ready, they may become defensive or withdrawn. Even if they care deeply, the feeling of being pressured can overshadow their positive emotions. This is particularly true for people with avoidant tendencies, who often value freedom and autonomy very highly. The more they feel cornered, the stronger their urge may become to create distance. This is why healthy relationships are built on invitations rather than demands. An invitation says, "I would love for you to be part of my life." A demand says, "I need you to be part of my life." The difference may seem subtle, but emotionally it is enormous. One creates freedom, while the other creates obligation. People are naturally more attracted to situations where they feel they have a choice. Real attraction also involves mutual effort. In unhealthy dynamics, one person often does all the work, while the other simply reacts. One person initiates every conversation, makes every plan, and carries the emotional weight of the relationship. Over time, this creates imbalance and resentment. Healthy attraction looks different because both people contribute, both reach out, both show interest, both make sacrifices when necessary. The connection becomes a shared responsibility rather than a one-sided pursuit. Another sign of real attraction is consistency. Grand gestures and intense emotions can feel exciting, but true attraction is often revealed through steady actions over time. It is shown in reliability, respect, honesty, and the willingness to remain present even when life becomes complicated. Someone who is genuinely attracted to you will not only enjoy the exciting moments, they will also invest in maintaining the connection when things become challenging. Perhaps the most important aspect of healthy attraction is that it allows both people to remain themselves. Neither person feels forced to abandon their identity, values, friendships, or goals in order to keep the relationship alive. Instead, the relationship enhances their lives rather than becoming their entire life. There is space for individuality alongside intimacy. Many people spend years trying to earn love from someone who is unwilling or unable to choose them. They believe that if they work harder, wait longer, or love more deeply, the other person will eventually change. But healthy attraction does not require endless convincing. It does not require you to constantly prove your value. When someone truly wants to be with you, their actions will usually reflect that desire. The strongest relationships are not built on pressure, guilt, obligation, or fear. They are built on freedom, respect, and mutual choice. They are built when two people wake up each day and continue choosing each other, not because they have to, but because they genuinely want to. That is what real attraction looks like. It is not a struggle to secure someone's attention. It is the natural result of two people moving toward each other willingly, creating a connection that feels both secure and effortless at the same time.